Moonshiners is about the alcohol bootlegging business. How legitimate is it? The bootlegging business has long been a staple in the annals of American history, its lore steeped in secrecy, rebellion, and survival. Moonshiners, the popular reality TV show on the Discovery Channel, offers viewers an inside look at the world of illicit alcohol production, showcasing individuals who make their living producing illegal spirits. The show chronicles the lives of moonshiners, people who brew and sell alcohol without the approval or oversight of the government, all while evading law enforcement. But how legitimate is this business? Is it merely a criminal enterprise, or is it a subculture with deep roots in American tradition? To explore these questions, we need to examine both the historical context of moonshining and its modern-day reality. Historical roots of moonshining. Moonshining has deep historical roots, particularly in the United States. The term itself is believed to have originated during the 18th century, when individuals would distill alcohol, particularly corn whiskey, in the dead of night, by the light of the moon, to avoid detection by authorities. In the early days, moonshining was largely a rural enterprise, with people in remote Appalachian communities producing homemade spirits as a way of generating income, or simply sustaining themselves in areas where economic opportunities were limited. One of the most pivotal moments in the history of moonshining was the implementation of Prohibition in 1920. The 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, gave rise to an enormous underground economy. People turned to illicit alcohol production, and a significant portion of that production was handled by moonshiners. These clandestine distillers, often operating in hidden stills in the woods, were seen as outlaws by law enforcement, but were admired by many others for their resilience and independence. During Prohibition, moonshiners were not just operating in the shadows. They became vital players in the underground alcohol trade. They were the unsung heroes of the speakeasies, clandestine bars that served as havens for those who wanted to enjoy a drink in defiance of the law. However, once Prohibition ended in 1933, moonshining didn't disappear. Instead, it evolved into a semi-legitimate business, particularly in rural areas where producing alcohol without a license continued to be seen as an acceptable activity. Moonshining today, a modern-day enterprise. Fast forward to the present day, and moonshining still exists, albeit in a form that's far more publicized and regulated. Shows like Moonshiners have helped to keep the business in the public eye, even though much of what is depicted on these programs is highly dramatized. The show follows individuals who make moonshine in the Appalachian Mountains and the surrounding rural areas, all while attempting to evade law enforcement. In modern times, the practice of moonshining is technically illegal. The U.S. government requires all alcoholic beverages to be produced under strict guidelines, including obtaining the proper permits, paying taxes, and adhering to quality and safety standards. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, ATF, regulates the distillation of spirits, and any production without the proper authorization is a federal crime. Moonshiners often face steep fines and even imprisonment if caught. Despite the illegality, many moonshiners argue that they are simply carrying on a time-honored tradition, one that has cultural significance and a personal connection to their families' histories. In this sense, moonshining may be seen as less a criminal act and more a defiant act of preserving a legacy. These individuals often view their work as a response to governmental overreach and a way to maintain independence. For them, making moonshine is not about defrauding the system, but about embracing a tradition that goes back generations. The legitimacy debate: so, is the moonshine business legitimate or not? The answer depends on how one defines legitimacy. From a legal standpoint, moonshining is, of course, an illegal enterprise in the United States unless conducted with proper permits and licenses. Making alcohol without following government regulations puts those involved at risk of prosecution, and this is what the authorities focus on: the fact that these individuals are breaking the law. The government requires distillers to meet safety standards to ensure that the alcohol being produced is not harmful to consumers, and unregulated alcohol production can lead to dangerous products. Moonshine, particularly when made in unlicensed stills, often lacks the proper oversight needed to guarantee safety. It can result in high levels of methanol, which is toxic, and the distillation process can also lead to such as fires or explosions. However, the legitimacy of moonshining in the eyes of the moonshiners themselves, as well as the subculture that surrounds it, is far more nuanced. For many, moonshining is not about profit-driven criminal activity, but rather about maintaining a way of life. It represents independence, craftsmanship, and rebellion against bureaucratic control. In this sense, the legitimacy of the business can be seen as a form of cultural expression rather than just illegal activity. For people who have grown up in the tradition of making moonshine, the business can feel deeply personal and part of their identity, making it harder to categorize as merely criminal. Furthermore, the moonshining community often sees itself as part of a larger cultural movement that seeks to preserve traditional ways of life in the face of modern commercialism. The moonshine they produce is often seen as a small batch, handcrafted product that holds far more authenticity than mass-produced spirits. In a world of mass consumption and factory-made alcohol, moonshiners argue that their product represents a return to real, honest craftsmanship. This connection to tradition and craftsmanship has fueled a movement in the alcoholic beverage industry, where craft distilleries have grown in popularity. The craft spirits industry, which includes legal distilleries producing small batch liquor, has boomed in recent years. Interestingly, some of these craft distilleries have roots in moonshining. Distillers who once operated in the shadows are now turning their illicit skills into legitimate businesses, benefiting from the growing demand for artisanal spirits. In this sense, moonshining is not a business that is entirely out of touch with modern, legitimate commerce. Rather, it is an industry that has evolved over time and found its place in the market. The economic impact of moonshining is another factor in the legitimacy debate. In rural areas where jobs can be scarce and poverty rates are high, moonshining can provide a significant source of income. For some, it is a means of survival, especially in regions where other forms of employment are hard to come by. Even in modern times, moonshining remains a necessary means of income for some families who might otherwise struggle to make ends meet. However, the dangers of operating an illegal business are never far away. While moonshiners may be able to make a living from their craft, they are also exposed to the threat of law enforcement crackdowns and potential fines or jail time. The danger of these legal consequences can be seen as a part of the price moonshiners pay for maintaining their traditions. Yet, they continue to operate, driven by the desire for independence and the allure of producing something that connects them to a long line of distillers who came before them. Conclusion: the dual nature of moonshining. Ultimately, the legitimacy of the moonshine business is a question of perspective. From a legal standpoint, moonshining is undeniably illegal, and those who engage in it risk facing serious legal consequences. However, from the point of view of the moonshiners themselves, their actions are far more complicated. Moonshining represents a way of life, a craft, and a tradition that has persisted for generations. It is an act of rebellion against government control, a manifestation of independence and self-reliance. While the moonshine business may never be completely legitimized in the eyes of the law, there is no denying its cultural significance and its place in the larger tapestry of American history. Whether viewed as an outlaw activity or as an integral part of a proud tradition, moonshining is an enterprise with a complex and multifaceted identity, one that continues to defy easy categorization. In the end, Moonshiners does more than just show the production of alcohol. It tells the story of a subculture that thrives on defiance, ingenuity, and tradition. And in this way, the question of legitimacy may be less important than the story it tells about the people who continue to make their living on their own terms.